Strange Tales from a Chinese Studio, Story 17.
So imagine you've just had a baby. You're leaning over the crib, looking down at this tiny, fragile life.
Right, the classic miracle moment.
Exactly. But instead of feeling this overwhelming rush of joy or, infinite possibility, your very first thought, the immediate instinct that flashes through your mind is, oh no, the repo man is here.
I mean, that just completely shatters the entire cultural script we have around birth and parenthood. We're so conditioned to view a newborn as a blank slate, right? A miracle.
Yeah.
So framing that infant as a hostile debt collector who's just invading your home, it's an incredibly jarring concept.
Jarring is the perfect word. And that is exactly the psychological territory we are exploring today.
It really is a fascinating one.
We are opening up an ancient text called Liao Zai Ziyi. You might have actually encountered it under the translated title, Strange Stories from a Chinese Studio.
That's a pretty well-known translation, yeah.
Right. And we're focusing on a single bite-sized story from this collection titled 40,000. So the mission today is to unpack this tale because I promise you it will completely dismantle how you think about family ties, financial obligations, and, well, the very concept of a blessing.
Oh, absolutely.
Okay, let's unpack this.
Well, the brevity of 40,000 is honestly deceptive. It's only a few paragraphs long, yet it operates like this tightly wound psychological thriller.
It really does.
The author takes the incredibly mundane world of bookkeeping and just smashes it into the ethereal concept of spiritual karma. It forces you to reevaluate the closest relationships in your life through this uncompromising, almost mathematical lens.
So let's set the board. Our main character lives in a place called Xinjiang, and he's a servant, but he holds a very specific high-status role.
Right, he's not just sweeping the floors.
No. He is the chief accountant and bookkeeper for a prominent official named Wang Sima. And because he manages this vast estate, our accountant is personally quite wealthy.
Which is key.
Very key. He is a man whose entire waking life is defined by ledgers, credits, deficits, and making sure the math always balances.
What's fascinating here is that his profession is really the linchpin of the narrative. A bookkeeper's worldview is entirely predicated on order and equivalent exchange.
Right.
Nothing in his universe happens for free. Literally everything has a measurable value. So when an anomaly occurs, his instinct isn't to look for a mystical explanation, His instinct is to audit it.
And an anomaly definitely occurs. One night, this master of the ledger has a terrifyingly vivid dream. A man violently kicks down the door to his home.
Just completely unannounced.
Totally unannounced, no introduction, no greeting. The intruder just storms in and shouts, "You owe me 40,000. It's time to pay it back today."
Wow.
Yeah, and the accountant tries to stop him, tries to ask questions, but the man completely ignores him and marches straight into the most private inner rooms of the house.
The inner sanctum.
Exactly. The accountant jolts awake, probably covered in a cold sweat, only to be hit with immediate news. His wife has just given birth to a baby boy.
And there it is. The synchronization of the dream and the birth is absolute. There's just no space left for ambiguity.
Which makes me wonder about his immediate reaction, right? Because if a literal home invader from your nightmare suddenly correlates with the birth of your son, you'd think this guy would assume his newborn is possessed.
Right, like a demon baby.
He must think a vengeful ghost or a demon has hijacked his baby to destroy his family from the inside.
And that would be the standard supernatural trope. But the horror here is far more clinical. The text explicitly uses a term that translates roughly to a karmic debt, or a pre-existing sin from a past life.
A karmic debt.
Exactly. He doesn't view the child as a monster. He views the child as an invoice.
An invoice. That is so wild.
It is. The universe has basically served him with a financial penalty wrapped in a baby's body. And the ultimate irony is that this is happening to a master accountant.
Right, the one guy who tracks every penny.
Exactly. His own flesh and blood is a walking, breathing deficit that he is now legally and spiritually bound to pay off.
So, facing this supernatural walking deficit, he doesn't call an exorcist. He doesn't go to a temple to pray for mercy. He goes full spreadsheet.
He really does.
He gathers exactly 40,000 strings of cash, which, by the way, is a massive, life-altering fortune, bundles it up, and physically locks it inside a dedicated room.
Just piles of money in a room.
Yep. And from that moment forward, every single expense for this child is tracked. His clothes, his food, the medicine when he gets a fever. Every copper penny is deducted exclusively from that isolated pile of money.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, he basically quarantines the liability. By creating a physical boundary around those specific funds, he's building a firewall between this supernatural obligation and the rest of his family's wealth.
Here's where it gets really interesting, but also incredibly dark. I mean, is this the ultimate budgeting hack, or is this the coldest parenting strategy ever recorded?
It's definitely cold.
It's like he's paying ransom to a kidnapper, but the kidnapper is living inside his own child.
That is a terrifying way to put it.
But it's true. Every time he buys a pair of shoes or a bowl of rice, he's just sliding cash under the door, praying it keeps the monster at bay. But looking at it from the outside, this is the most sociopathic parenting strategy imaginable.
Oh, absolutely.
He's looking at his growing toddler and seeing a ticking meter. He is raising a child without a shred of affection, just maintaining a cold tally of resources.
Psychologically, yes, it is monstrously cold, but consider the defensive utility of that coldness. Parenthood is the ultimate vulnerability.
Yeah, that's true.
You pour your energy, your love, your soul into a child knowing that the world is incredibly dangerous. So by objectifying his son as a mere financial transaction, the father is shielding himself from that vulnerability.
He's building an emotional fortress.
Exactly, an emotional fortress made of coins. If the child is just a debt, then the father doesn't have to risk loving him. He is attempting to use the rigid rules of accounting to control a completely chaotic, supernatural curse.
But a pile of cash is finite, and the growing toddler's needs are constant. The math inevitably has to catch up to them.
It always does.
And that collision happens about 3 or 4 years later. The boy's a toddler now. The father goes into that locked room for a routine check of the funds.
An audit.
Right, an audit. He counts the remaining strings of cash and realizes that out of the original 40,000, only 700 coins are left.
Oh, wow.
The account is at the absolute brink of insolvency.
The tension here shifts entirely to the balance sheet. The threat is no longer the ghost from the dream. The threat is the impending zero.
And the timing is crazy. The boy's wet nurse walks into the room right at this exact moment, carrying the toddler.
Yeah.
And the kid is vibrant. He's laughing, playing, totally oblivious to the ledger.
He's just a normal kid.
It's just a normal 3 or 4-year-old boy, happy to see his dad. But the father looks down at this laughing child and, with a terrifyingly casual tone, says, "The 40,000 is almost gone. You should be leaving."
Just brutally cold. He issues a verbal eviction notice to his own offspring.
The moment the words hit the air, the child's face drains of color. He frowns, his neck snaps back, his eyes widen in horror, and he drops dead, right there on the floor.
The transition from a vibrant child to a corpse is instantaneous. There's no illness, no accident.
Wait, hold on. He just killed his kid with a single sentence. Did the father's words actually kill the child, or was he secretly practicing dark magic? Like, was "you should be leaving" a death spell disguised as an audit?
And that's what makes this a masterpiece of psychological horror. There was no magic spell.
Really?
Really. The father possessed no supernatural power whatsoever. He merely read the bottom line. The remaining 700 coins weren't an accounting error or a buffer for next month's groceries.
Then what were they?
They were the exact predetermined amount required to cover the child's funeral expenses.
Oh my God. The universe had already priced in the coffin.
Precisely. The supernatural contract was airtight. The entity didn't die because the father commanded it to it. The entity ceased to exist in this realm because its funding ran out.
That is insane.
The 40,000 coin debt was the only thing keeping that child tethered to the physical world. Once the money was gone, the tether snapped.
That implies something even darker about the father's mindset, doesn't it? He watches his son drop dead, and there is zero grief.
None.
He doesn't scream, he doesn't cry. He simply takes those last 700 coins, goes out, and buys the burial clothes and the coffin.
The final transaction clears.
Yes. The account hits exactly zero, and the absolute relief of an empty ledger completely replaces the grief of a dead child.
He balanced the book. In his mind, he survived the audit. And that emotional void you're pointing out is actually the core philosophical argument of the text.
How so?
Well, the author doesn't just leave us with a creepy ghost story, right? He appends a profound commentary at the end to explain the mechanics of this universe.
Right, the commentary. The text introduces us to an old man who has lived his entire life without ever having children.
Right?
And this old man goes to a high monk, a respected spiritual authority, and asks, "Why did I never have a child?"
And the monk's response is just brutal.
It really strips away everything we romanticize about human connection. The monk tells him, "You owe no one and no one owes you. How could you get a child?"
It reduces the entirety of the human experience to a cosmic balance sheet. It completely removes biology, serendipity, and love from the equation of family.
So what does this all mean? The text outlines the rules of this cosmic ledger. It basically claims that having a good, obedient, loving child is simply fate repaying a debt to you from a past life.
They're paying you back with joy and support.
Exactly. But having a stubborn, rebellious, or destructive child, or a child who drains your wealth, is fate collecting a debt from you.
Right.
So the text delivers this incredibly bleak, stoic mandate. Do not rejoice at birth, do not grieve at death.
It's intense.
It is an incredibly bleak way to look at human connection. Just a series of ancient IOUs dictating who we love and who breaks our hearts. Because if you believe a child's death is a random tragedy, or worse, a punishment from a capricious God, you're left drowning in guilt and all those what-ifs.
The guilt is crushing.
You wonder if you didn't pray hard enough, if the doctor made a mistake, if you somehow failed to protect them.
And this philosophy acts as a societal shock absorber. By framing a child as a karmic debt, it removes human agency from the tragedy. It removes the guilt.
Because it wasn't your fault.
Exactly. You didn't do anything wrong. The universe isn't randomly cruel. The ledger simply hit zero. It replaces the agonizing, messy, emotional chaos of mortality with the cold, predictable comfort of mathematical karma.
So it's basically applying cold logic to the most illogical pain imaginable.
That's a great way to phrase it.
It neutralizes the chaos of the universe. Imagine viewing every relationship in your life, not through the lens of love or biology, but as a cosmic balance sheet.
It completely shifts your perspective.
If you have a child who causes you endless suffering, this philosophy offers a bizarre kind of peace. It says, endure it. You are just clearing your own spiritual debts.
Right.
And if you lose a child, it says, you didn't lose a piece of your soul. You just finally settled the account. The psychological armor of the accountant in the story suddenly makes perfect sense as a survival mechanism.
The brilliance of the story is how it externalizes that internal coping mechanism. The literal locked room of cash is a physical manifestation of how these societies had to compartmentalize their grief just to keep functioning.
And what's wild is that the language of debt is still incredibly deeply woven into how we talk about our relationships today.
Oh, everywhere.
We might not believe in a literal cosmic debt collector kicking down our bedroom door, but think about the phrases we use constantly. I owe you one.
After everything I've done for you.
Exactly. Or, you need to pay your dues.
We are constantly keeping score. The currency might be emotional labor, time, or favors instead of copper coins, but the underlying instinct to balance the ledger remains deeply human.